My dear friends, I want to share with you today something that has transformed countless lives, something so simple yet so profound that when you truly understand it, money will begin to flow to you as naturally as water flows downstream. There is one sentence, one declaration that, when spoken with absolute faith and understanding, opens the floodgates of abundance in ways that might seem miraculous to the uninitiated, but which are simply the natural workings of divine law. Before I share this powerful sentence with you, I must first help you understand the spiritual foundation upon which it rests. You see, my dear ones, we live in a universe governed by immutable laws, and chief among these is the law of the word. Every word you speak carries creative power. Every thought you think is a seed planted in the fertile soil of universal mind. And when you align your words with divine truth, when you speak from that place of absolute knowing that resides within your heart, you set into motion forces that must bring about manifestation. I have witnessed this truth demonstrated time and again in my own life, and in the lives of those who have come to me seeking guidance. There was a woman who came to me years ago, desperate and broken, convinced that poverty was her permanent lot in life. She had tried everything the world suggested, working harder, saving more, cutting expenses, yet still she struggled. But when I taught her the principle I'm sharing with you today, when she learned to speak the word with authority and faith, her entire financial picture transformed within weeks. Money began flowing to her from unexpected sources. Opportunities opened before her like flowers blooming in spring, and abundance became her natural state. This is not wishful thinking, my friends. This is spiritual law in action. The Bible tells us that we are made in the image and likeness of God. And if God is the source of all supply, then we too have access to infinite abundance. But we must learn to claim it, to speak it into existence, to align our consciousness with the truth of our divine heritage. Now, let me share with you this transformative sentence, this declaration that has the power to revolutionize your relationship with money and abundance. But first, you must understand that the power is not in the words themselves, but in the consciousness behind them, in the faith with which they are spoken, in the absolute knowing that what you declare must come to pass because it is in harmony with divine will. The sentence is this: my supply comes from God, and God is the inexhaustible, unfailing source of all good. When you speak these words with deep conviction, when you feel their truth reverberating through every cell of your being, you are doing more than making a positive affirmation. You are declaring a spiritual fact, acknowledging a divine truth that has always been, connecting yourself consciously with the source of all abundance. But let me warn you, dear ones, this is not a magical incantation that works simply by repetition. The power lies in your understanding, in your faith, in your ability to release all concern about how and when your good will come to you. When you truly know that God is your source, you stop looking to people, circumstances, or conditions for your supply. You stop trying to manipulate and control. You simply open your heart, speak the word, and allow the divine to work through you and for you in ways that are beyond your human understanding. I remember a businessman who came to me in great distress. His company was failing, creditors were demanding payment, and he saw no way out of his financial difficulties. His mistake was common. He had been looking to his business, his customers, his investments as his source of supply. When I taught him to recognize God as his true source, when he began to declare daily that his supply comes from the inexhaustible fountain of divine love, everything changed. New opportunities appeared, unexpected contracts came his way, and debts were resolved in ways he never could have imagined. He learned that when we acknowledge God as our source, we tap into infinite possibilities. This principle works because it aligns us with the fundamental truth of our being. We are not separate from God, struggling alone in a hostile universe. We are expressions of divine life, And as such, we have access to all that God has and is. But we must claim this truth, speak it, live it, breathe it until it becomes more real to us than any appearance of lack or limitation. The reason most people struggle with money is that they have been programmed to believe in scarcity, to see supply as limited, to think they must compete and struggle for their share. But this is not the truth of our divine nature. The truth is that we live in an abundant universe, where there is more than enough for everyone, where our good is not dependent on anyone else's loss, where prosperity is our natural birthright. When you declare that your supply comes from God, you are recognizing this truth. You are acknowledging that the source of all abundance is infinite and inexhaustible. You are opening your consciousness to receive from the unlimited storehouse of divine love. And when your consciousness is open, when your heart is aligned with truth, manifestation becomes inevitable. I have seen this demonstrated in the most remarkable ways. A woman who had been struggling to pay her rent began declaring this truth daily. Within days, she received an unexpected inheritance from a distant relative she had never met. A man who had been unemployed for months spoke these words with absolute faith, and within a week received 3 job offers, each better than the last. A single mother who had been worried about providing for her children trusted in this principle and found that money began flowing to her from sources she had never even considered. These are not coincidences, my dear friends. These are demonstrations of spiritual law. When we align our thoughts, our words, our very being with divine truth, we create a magnetic field that draws to us everything we need for our highest good. We become channels through which infinite abundance can flow into expression. But I must emphasize again that this is not about greed or selfishness. This principle works only when we seek abundance for the right reasons, to be of greater service, to fulfill our divine purpose, to share our good with others. When we seek wealth merely for its own sake, when we try to use spiritual law for selfish gain, we create resistance that blocks the very flow we seek to establish. The universe is set up to support our highest good, but it defines highest good differently than our human minds might. Our highest good is always in alignment with love, with service, with the expansion of consciousness, and the blessing of others. When we seek prosperity from this consciousness, when we understand that our abundance is meant to be shared and used for the upliftment of all, then we find that supply flows to us effortlessly and continuously. I want you to understand something profound about the nature of money itself. Money is not evil, as some religious teachings might suggest. Money is simply a symbol, a representation of energy, a tool for the exchange of value. When we see money in its true light, as a spiritual substance that exists to facilitate the flow of good in the world, we can embrace it without guilt or fear. The problems arise when we worship money, when we make it our God, when we believe it has power over us. But when we recognize that money is simply energy, and that God is the source of all energy, then we can relate to money in a healthy, balanced way. We can receive it gratefully, use it wisely, and share it generously, knowing that our supply is unlimited because our source is infinite. Let me share another powerful truth with you. The sentence, "My supply comes from God, and God is the inexhaustible, unfailing source of all good," does more than attract money to you. It transforms your entire relationship with abundance. It frees you from the anxiety and fear that block prosperity. It releases you from the need to compete, manipulate, or struggle. It opens your heart to receive in ways you never imagined possible. When you truly know that God is your source, you stop hoarding. You stop operating from scarcity consciousness. You stop being afraid that there's not enough. Instead, you begin to give freely, knowing that as you give, you create space for more to come to you. You begin to invest in your dreams, to take inspired action, to follow your intuition, knowing that divine intelligence is guiding you toward your highest good. I have observed that those who struggle most with money are often those who have the most resistance to receiving. They may work hard, they may be very capable, but somewhere deep in their consciousness, they believe they don't deserve abundance. They may have been taught that money is the root of all evil, or that spiritual people should be poor, or that they must suffer to be worthy of God's love. But this is not the truth, my dear ones. God wants you to be prosperous. God wants you to have everything you need to fulfill your purpose and express your divine nature. The Creator of the universe, who made the stars and the oceans, who filled the earth with abundance, surely wants His children to enjoy the fruits of His creation. When you declare that your supply comes from God, you are not only claiming your good, you are also releasing any guilt or shame you may have about having money. You are recognizing that prosperity is not something you must earn through suffering, but something that flows naturally when you align yourself with divine truth. The key to making this sentence work powerfully in your life is to speak it with what I call the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Don't speak it from a place of lack, saying, "I hope God will provide for me." Instead, speak it from a place of gratitude, knowing that God has already provided everything you need. The supply exists in the invisible realm, and your words of faith are drawing it into visible manifestation. I often tell people to imagine themselves as a magnet. When you speak words of truth with faith and conviction, you magnetize your good to you. You create an irresistible attraction between yourself and your prosperity. But when you speak from fear or doubt, when you focus on what you lack rather than what God has already provided, you create resistance that repels your good. This is why I emphasize the importance of speaking with authority. Jesus spoke with authority when He said, "Let there be light," and there was light. When you speak with the authority of one who knows the truth, when you declare your oneness with infinite supply, you wield the same creative power that Jesus demonstrated. But authority is not the same as force. True spiritual authority comes from alignment with divine will, from knowing that what you speak is in harmony with the highest good of all. When you demand money from a place of ego or desperation, you work against the natural flow of abundance. But when you claim your good as a child of God, when you speak from love and trust, you work with the universe rather than against it. I want to address something that often confuses people. They wonder why some people seem to have money effortlessly while others struggle despite their spiritual practices. The answer lies in consciousness. Those who prosper easily have somehow developed a prosperity consciousness, a deep knowing that abundance is their natural state. They may not even be consciously spiritual, but their consciousness is aligned with the truth of abundance. On the other hand, those who struggle often have what I call a poverty consciousness, a deep-seated belief that they don't deserve good things, that money is scarce, that they must work hard and suffer to get ahead. No matter how many affirmations they speak or how hard they work, their underlying beliefs keep them stuck in patterns of lack. This is why the sentence I've shared with you is so powerful. It doesn't just address your financial situation, it transforms your consciousness. When you truly understand that God is your source, when you feel this truth in your bones, your entire mental and emotional relationship with money changes. You begin to expect good things. You begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles. You begin to act from abundance rather than scarcity. Let me tell you about a man who came to me after losing his job and his home. He was bitter, angry, convinced that life was unfair and that he was destined for failure. But I taught him to speak this sentence with conviction every day. My supply comes from God, and God is the inexhaustible, unfailing source of all good. At first, he spoke it mechanically, without feeling. But gradually, as he continued to declare this truth, something shifted in his consciousness. He began to see that his anger and bitterness were blocking his good. He began to forgive those he blamed for his troubles. He began to trust that God had something better in store for him. And as his consciousness changed, his outer circumstances began to change too. New opportunities appeared. People began to help him in unexpected ways. And within a few months, he was more prosperous than he had ever been before. This is the power of aligning your consciousness with divine truth. When you truly know that God is your source, you stop fighting the universe and start flowing with it. You stop trying to force things to happen and start allowing them to unfold naturally. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start being a co-creator with God. But remember, my dear friends, this is not about passive waiting. When you declare that God is your source, you must also be willing to follow divine guidance. You must be alert to opportunities, open to new possibilities, ready to take inspired action when the way is shown to you. God works through you, not for you. You are the channel through which infinite abundance flows into expression. I have seen people speak these words faithfully but then ignore the guidance they receive. They pray for money but don't follow up on the business idea that comes to them. They ask for abundance but don't take the steps necessary to receive it. This is like planting a seed and then refusing to water it. The power is in the combination of faith and action, of speaking the word and then following through with appropriate steps. The sentence, "My supply comes from God, and God is the inexhaustible, unfailing source of all good," is most powerful when it becomes your living truth, not just something you say. When you wake up in the morning, let this be your first conscious thought. When you face financial challenges during the day, return to this truth. When you go to sleep at night, let this be your last conscious affirmation. As you continue to declare this truth, you will find that your relationship with money becomes increasingly peaceful and joyful. You will stop worrying about bills, stop anxiously checking your bank account, stop feeling stressed about financial matters. Instead, you will develop what I call a divine indifference, a calm confidence that your needs are always met, that your good is always flowing to you, that you are always provided for. This doesn't mean you become careless or irresponsible with money. On the contrary, when you know that God is your source, you handle money with greater wisdom and gratitude. You spend consciously, save wisely, and give generously. You understand that money is a tool for blessing, not a measure of your worth. I want to share with you a powerful technique that amplifies the effectiveness of this sentence. As you speak these words, visualize yourself surrounded by golden light, representing the infinite abundance of God. See this light flowing into your life, bringing with it everything you need for your highest good. Feel the peace that comes from knowing you are eternally provided for. Experience the joy of being a beloved child of an abundant Father. This visualization helps to impress the truth of your words upon your subconscious mind. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. When you consistently visualize abundance while speaking words of truth, you program your subconscious to attract and recognize opportunities for prosperity. Another powerful practice is to speak this sentence while looking at yourself in a mirror. Look into your own eyes and declare with absolute conviction, "My supply comes from God, and God is the inexhaustible, unfailing source of all good." This helps to overcome any subconscious resistance you may have to receiving abundance. It helps you to truly believe that you are worthy of God's infinite provision. I must also emphasize the importance of gratitude in this process. As you declare that God is your source, cultivate a deep sense of gratitude for all the good that is already flowing into your life. Gratitude is the magnetic force that draws more good to you. When you are grateful for what you have, you align yourself with the consciousness of abundance that attracts even more to be grateful for. Make it a practice to thank God throughout the day for your supply, even before you see it manifested. Thank Him for the check that's in the mail, for the opportunity that's on its way, for the abundance that's flowing to you now. This attitude of grateful expectancy creates a powerful magnetic field that draws your good to you quickly and easily. Sometimes people ask me how long they must speak this sentence before they see results. The answer is not about time. It's about the depth of your conviction. Some people see immediate results because they speak with absolute faith from the very first day. Others take longer because they must first overcome years of negative programming about money and worth. Be patient with yourself, but also be persistent. Don't let doubt creep in if you don't see immediate results. Remember that in the spiritual realm, your good is already yours. Your continued declaration of truth is simply drawing it from the invisible into the visible realm. Every time you speak these words with faith, you are making a deposit in the bank of infinite abundance. I want to address one more important point. Some people worry that focusing on money and abundance is somehow unspiritual, that they should be content with little and focus only on spiritual matters. But this is a false separation. Everything is spiritual. Money is spiritual. Abundance is spiritual. Your prosperity is a part of God's plan for your life. When you are prosperous, you are in a better position to help others. You can be more generous, more supportive, more impactful in your service to humanity. Your abundance is not meant to be hoarded, it's meant to be shared, to be used for the blessing of all. When you understand this, you can pursue prosperity with a clear conscience, knowing that your good contributes to the good of all. As we come to the close of our time together, let me remind you of the simple yet profound truth I've shared with you today. The sentence, "My supply comes from God, and God is the inexhaustible, unfailing source of all good," has the power to transform your entire financial reality. But the power is not in the words themselves. It's in the consciousness behind them, in the faith with which you speak them, in the absolute knowing that what you declare must come to pass. Speak these words daily, not as a desperate plea, but as a confident declaration of truth. Let them become so much a part of your consciousness that you think them automatically, feel them constantly, live them completely. When you do this, you will find that money begins to flow to you effortlessly, not because you are manipulating the universe, but because you are finally aligned with the truth of your divine nature. Remember, my dear friends, you are not separate from God. You are an expression of divine life, and as such, you have access to all that God has and is. Your supply is infinite because your source is infinite. Your prosperity is assured because you are beloved of God. Speak this truth, live this truth, and watch as your life transforms in ways that will fill your heart with wonder and gratitude. Go forth now with confidence, knowing that your every need is met, your every legitimate desire fulfilled, your every step guided by infinite wisdom. You are abundantly blessed, and as you recognize this truth, abundance will flow to you as naturally as sunlight flows from the sun. This is the law, this is the truth, and this is your inheritance as a child of the Most High.